So good morning and welcome to the Standing Committees meeting for Wednesday, November 15th, 2022. All council meetings will continue to be live streamed on the city's website, and we are also back up on the TV as well now. Our first order of business is roll call. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Reverend Burgess. Here. Mr. Coghill.
Here.
Ms. Gross.
Here.
Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Mrs. Kel-Smith. Ms. Strasburger.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Lavelle, Chair.
Here.
7 members present.
Thank you. Our next order of business is going to be to amend the agenda. May we have a motion to amend?
Second. First, a motion to amend.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is amended, and with that, Councilwoman Strasburger I believe, is going to present a proclamation for Councilman Kraus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If everyone from New Century Careers could join me at the front.
Back a second up with a first.
I realize it's a little unorthodox to present a proclamation. You can all come right over here. To present a proclamation on a standing committee day, but Councilman Kraus asked me to present a proclamation, very well deserved, to New Century Careers for National Apprenticeship Week. Whereas 2022 marks the 85th anniversary of the National Apprenticeship Act, and whereas National Apprenticeship Week is celebrating its 8th anniversary of raising awareness of the vital role registered apprenticeships provide in creating opportunities by allowing apprentices to earn while they learn and preparing a pathway to good quality jobs and well-paying careers in Pittsburgh and across the nation. And whereas registered apprenticeship programs enable employers to develop and train their future workforce while offering career seekers affordable paths to secure high-paying jobs. And whereas New Century Careers joins all local industries that promote the role of registered apprenticeship in expanding opportunities in our workforce that are inclusive of individuals who have been historically underserved, marginalized, and adversely affected by persistent poverty and inequality, thus providing a path for all qualified individuals, including women, youth, people of color, rural communities, justice-involved individuals, and individuals with disabilities to become apprentices and contribute to America's industries. And whereas New Century Careers develops and promotes apprenticeships such as its registered robotics technician apprenticeship program to meet the demands of advanced manufacturing sector. And now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh recognizes that registered apprenticeship, a proven and industry-driven training model, can train our workforce and build a pipeline into good quality jobs in order to address our nation's pressing workforce challenges, such as rebuilding our country's infrastructure, addressing critical supply chain demands, supporting a clean energy workforce, modernizing our cybersecurity response, and responding to care economy issues. And be it further resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby declare November 14th through November 20th, 2022 as National Apprenticeship Week in the City of Pittsburgh.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Proclamation is approved.
Councilman Kraus, would you like to say a few words?
Councilwoman, thank you so very much for your thoughtfulness. I appreciate you being able to step in and present this proc for me this morning. And apologies to our invited guests for not being able to be there in person, and to thank you personally for the amazing work that you're doing and the contribution you are making, which is so very necessarily needed. So thank you for being here, and thank you for understanding my inability to be there this morning with you. Thank you.
I'll just say for my part that, we know that we have a worker shortage in this country. We have a need to create pipelines for every single person to gain the skills that are right for them, to get the vocation, the job, the fulfillment in their life that's right for them. So I couldn't be more supportive of this as well. And I'm really grateful that we have wonderful organizations in the city that support this work and whose main motivation is to match more people to the skills and to the jobs that are right for them and give them the skills that are needed. So thank you for your work, and I'd like to invite you to come up and say a few words.
On behalf of New Century Careers, my name is Neil Ashbaugh, the President and CEO, and I want to acknowledge two of my colleagues, Sarah Bast, who's our Student Services Representative, and Ron Buckner, who is our Marketing Communications Generalist. We're so proud to be doing this work for the city and for the region. It's very difficult, especially coming out of COVID, to find a good paying job, but when we can provide this tuition-free pre-apprenticeship program that leads to apprenticeship programs, we're just so honored to be doing this work, and we thank you, all of the council members, for this proclamation, and thank you for joining us in recognizing and honoring all the contributions that pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships provide, not only to this region, but to the entire nation. So thank you all very, very much.
Why didn't you answer?
Thank you. So, our next order of business will be public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation, which are or may be before city council, and profanity will not be permitted. Our first registered speaker is Dr. Ronald Lynn Miller. Please restate your name and neighborhood for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak.
Dr. Ronald N. Miller, Beltuver, Rio, Tokyo, Abuja, Berlin. Global Intelligence Society, U.S. National Candidate for President 2024, globalintelligencesociety.org. Vote by voter verification and uncensored freedom of speech and public comment are key to what I do. I communicate in Espanol, Nihongo, Hausa, Deutsch, and a number of other languages. A concern of council is the budget of the city of Pittsburgh. So on 14 November 2022, Mr. I can't prove I voted for Gainey talked about the budget for the city of Pittsburgh. Diversity and equity were key words in Gainey's speech. We welcome everyone, Gainey said. I want to focus on two things. And that focus involves focusing on actions, not on primarily on the person. Stress one, diversity in the council room, especially Gainey supporters and staff, individuals of Black African and white European descent, yes, but as far as I could tell, no individuals of Native American, Latin, or Asian descent. This is anti-diversity, in my view, and it is ethnocentrist, racist exclusion. That is Gainey anti-welcome, inaction. Stress two, diversity in entrepreneurial financial support. Mr. Gainey singled out a group, Black women, for such support. I think they should get it. And I waited for Mr. Pittsburgh diversity champion to elaborate. But Gainey singled out only one group: no non-black women. No Native American Pittsburgh women need business support. No Latina women. No Asian women. In Gainey's own words, again, his actions in public, publicly recorded, as, in my view, an unverified public official, express exclusionary, anti-welcoming, anti-diversity racism.
Our next our next registered speaker is Naomi Mullen.
Good morning. Shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. First, do no harm is not just a rule of medicine. Government shall not harm the people or can be held accountable. Blockbusting and infliction of emotional distress has occurred against Bon Air. Those who oppose the property owners of Bon Air do so at their own peril. Various cities and hospitals are being sued with success. Illinois workers won a suit against their university healthcare employer. Let this case be a warning to employers that violated Title VII, said Matt Staber, founder and of Liberty Counsel. On June 20th, 2022, the detrimental Bon Air school building worsened into being a disruptive and nuisance property. We have objected to apartments or anything other than a green space to replace the school. Tear it down. The building is a magnet to youth who broke into it in addition to trespassing. 3 of the 7 had to be escorted out of the building. Tear it down. Other neighborhoods have been blighted with worse. Do not allow it to happen to Bon Air. The outcry to the school board has proven futile. Put pressure on them to sell it to the city for $1. Tear it down. Now that McKinley Park is no longer in Bon Air, we want the school to become a green space as replacement. Open deals, not shady deals in Bon Air. The school board has proven itself as detrimental. Will you be part of the solution? Along with Mayor Gainey, who has given his support verbally, the Memorial Green Space is a partial reparation for the injuries we have endured. Shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. Thank you.
Thank you. That exhausts our list of registered speakers. Is anyone with us in chambers wishing to speak? Please come forward, provide your name and neighborhood. You will also be given 3 minutes.
Good morning and thank you. My name is Les Ludwig, 6589 Rosemore Street, Pittsburgh, PA 15217. So what am I doing here today? Well, I came, frankly, to bring you good news. What's good news? Good news is 55 years of experience in the police department, including being the captain. And the gentleman's name, now retired, is Dan Quinlan. He and I have put together a plan that would probably reduce the number of shooting deaths by 25%. That's his estimate. What's my part? My part is coming up with the ideas and melding them in with his experience. Now, if you want this program, you want to see what it is, I can't show it to you because right away you'll copy it and you'll refuse to pay anything for it. And we are currently at a standoff, at least at the moment, over a small matter where an invoice was requested and delivered, and the person in charge of contracts for the city actually felt that it was a fair bill. So you know probably darn right well what I'm talking about. And what we're saying to you is this: if you want a program that literally will lead nationally to a reduction in shooting and getting these high army weapons off of the street, cleaning up some of the dope problems, etc., then you're going to come on board with the two of us. But first, we have to clean up an old matter, and that is money. Money that is asked for and budgeted. There was a budget figure of $7,500 for a program. Where do you come off at taking the ideas and not paying? It's a chronic problem. How many people are not here? How many empty seats? Why?
Thank you.
Because of your behavior. I thank you, and I look forward to the check. The rest is up to you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I live at 715 Mercer Street. That's up on Bedford Avenue, up in the Hill District. I came today because I live in a senior citizens home. And once there was a resident that said that we should have a daycare center down at the bottom, down in the cellar, for the children, for the seniors. Some seniors love to work with children, and that we could possibly do. The reason why made me think about that is I have a great grandbaby she's 18 months now. Now she started talking. I'm talking about talking. I don't know what she's saying, but she's really, and I'm talking about carrying on a conversation. So when I say, what? She repeats it right over again. This is what I'm saying. A baby sees that I can't understand it, and she'll repeat it. But I'm saying when you make your announcements, you say it once, you don't say it again. Robert Rules of Order says that when you make an announcement, you are to repeat it, because some people may not have heard it at the beginning, and you don't do it. You'll make your announcement. I've never heard you say it twice, and that's what Robert Rules of Order says. Then also, I am looking at Mr. Burgess, because on the 7th of November, that's the day my son was killed. So I'm sitting back there in my own element, sitting there and thinking, and I see him coming. I can't believe it, but I said, that looks like he's coming to mess with me. But I said like this, oh Lord, don't let him do this to me. And sure enough, he came standing, towering up over me like a big giant, screaming and telling me that this is not, and that's when I ran and said, leave me alone. Go back up there in the front where you're supposed to be, take care of city business. Because whenever we're speaking at city council, there's a lot of times he's not even in the room. Outside in the door, peeping in. And I plenty of time when I said, get in there, you're supposed to be in there. I told Andy Gassmeyer, even Harold Hayes, Mr. Burgess is in the house peeping in the door. But he can't come when we were speaking, but he can come and mess with me in the back. Also, I heard, and guess whose man it was, telling the woman, oh, come in, director. Okay, come on, you know this, we don't usually do this, but we're going to interview you after they done gave her the position. You hear that? That's the work, that's the type of stuff you used to do. I heard it. She already got the position, and then they're going to interview her like she don't have it. And he's proud and he's loud in saying it, just like this loud mouth coming messing with me. He's got to leave me alone. He's got to, because it's getting so that the people are saying that he's targeting me, he's picking at me, he's harassing me.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please.
Hello. My name is Bernadette. I'm from Beach. I love the twice-a-year yard pickup. It's not enough. I have Good Luck Fairies or something from Canada. That I have a maple tree that still wants to stay green. Everyone's also like saying, why is your tree not turning colors? So she just sprinkles whatever I think that I can manage. I put everything in the brown paper bags that we were supposed to, but November 12th was the residual of a late November hurricane that blew through, and we had lots of water, and those paper bags just didn't make it. So I think we need options. I'm not promoting a product because there's various ones on the market in box stores or online. So these are much easily managed for me because it stays wide open. I could scoop, and those other bags just were not manageable at all. These are wonderful. So anyway, they could be picked up by the debris guys for the yard and just dumped in, and we can continue to reuse our reusable bags. It's an option, and maybe have more than one day in the fall. Another thing. Oh, don't let my mind go. Oh, thank you for being the farming thing. I apologize to Deborah Gross. She wanted me to show her some edibles right next door to your yard. I didn't realize the warm weather brought up some Creepin' Charlie, or Gill on the cover, as it's called, some broadleaf plantain. I could have showed her a whole bunch you could feed a family that weekend. That's no pun at you. I love these type of edibles. But if we had the steel prefab rec center come to Pauline Park, there's a plethora of wooded areas that I can tell you right now you can. It's a wonderful skill to have. We don't know if it's going to be an epidemic next. We don't know if it's not just going to be toilet paper and baby formula that's not on the shelves. Teaching our kids horticulture, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, foraging, it's a skill that's lost, and they should be able to have it, as I did during the pandemic. I wasn't sending my kid to the store. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Flora Williams, and I am coming together. I want, now that the election is about over, I do believe they're still counting, but I believe instead work together. Okay, Democrat, Republican, does not matter. We're supposed to work for the people, work together. That is the only way we're gonna get something done. We're so busy trying to outdo one another instead of coming together with each other and getting the work done. That is what is supposed to be the initial thing of being elected, is to get things done. Not worry about what this one's doing and what that one's doing. You have to come together to get things done, because as long as you being separated like that,
and not addressing the problems that we are facing, we're not going to ever reach where we're trying to get. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, that will move us on to our standing committee's agenda. Our first committee of the day is Finance and Law, which is chaired by myself. Our first new paper is Bill 915.
Bill 915, Resolution amending Resolution 648 of 2019, which authorized the mayor and the director of the Department of Finance to enter into an agreement or agreements with Mar Dussel to provide auditing services to the city of Pittsburgh by exercising the additional option years to extend the term of the agreement for 2 years. Total cost not to exceed $672,859.
Motion to approve, please.
Second.
Any discussion?
Discussion, was there an RFP, or was this just an extension?
Mr. Chair?
Councilman Kraus?
Yeah, thank you very much. It is an extenuation of an existing contract that we have with them to extend for an additional 5 years, if I read this. I'm sorry, 2 years.
2 years.
Yes, I don't believe there would be an RFP. It's an extenuation of an existing contract. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Madam Clerk, if you could read 916, 917, 918 together, they all need held for executive session.
Bill number 916, Resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Christopher P. Boyle in the total amount of $9,500 for expert fees associated with the litigation matter filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania against the city of Pittsburgh. Bill number 917, Resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Gleason and Associates in the total amount of $11,184 for services in connection with the case filed. And Bill number 918, Resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Joyce Haynes and her attorney, Simon & Simon, in the amount of $35,000 relating to the full and final settlement of a case filed in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas.
Motion to hold for executive session?
Yep. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All three bills will be held for executive session. That takes us to invoices. Need a motion to approve the invoices.
So moved.
Moved.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Invoices are approved. We'll now need a motion to approve the interdepartmental transfers.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Transfers are approved. Need a motion to approve the P cards.
So moved?
Moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? P cards are approved. That takes us to Public Safety Services Committee, chaired by Councilman Kraus. First new paper is Bill 912.
Bill 912, Resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of public safety to enter into an agreement or agreements with the United States Department of Justice for the purpose of receiving and spending grant funds in the amount of $539,580.21 for the purpose of providing funding for training and capacity extension for the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police and Department of Public Safety for crisis response.
Motion to approve. Just very brief discussion, please.
Second?
Second, discussion, Councilman Kraus?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We are receiving grant funds here that will be made applicable to the Bureau of Police and the Department of Public Safety for crisis response. I'm happy to support as members if they too would please support, but I do believe there is representation here from the Bureau if members were to have questions.
Are they online?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Gross?
All right, I did read the bill, but could you remind me, we're receiving the grant funds for, what specifically? It says crisis response, but can anyone elaborate? Or I can reread my text file. Is it, so it's just training? It's just training? Mm-hmm. Okay, and the training's provided by DOJ?
Yes.
Okay, I think I can go with that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 913.
Bill 913, Resolution amending Resolution Number 621 of 2017, authorizing the Mayor, Director of Public Safety, and Director of Finance to enter on behalf of the City of Pittsburgh into an amended lease agreement or agreements with the Pittsburgh Trust for Cultural Resources for providing a police substation at the Lantern Building in downtown Pittsburgh beginning September 2017. The amended lease agreement or agreements shall provide for an 18-month extension at identical terms not to exceed $15,000 annually.
Motion to approve, please. Again, brief discussion.
Second.
Councilman Kraus?
Thanks, Councilman. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure members are aware how wildly received the substation has been as it relates to downtown and public safety. Overall, this is an extension of an existing lease that will go for an additional 18 months with a cost of $15,000 annually, not to exceed $15,000 annually. So I ask my colleagues please to support, and I'm in support as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Coghill?
Yes. My question is this open 24/7, this substation? Does anybody from public?
Is there someone here from Public Safety to answer?
There currently is not.
I thought I saw Dan Shack here.
Oh, you are correct. He is here.
Hello, Councilman. I'm here to speak for the next bill, but the hours of the substation, I believe, vary based upon special events. Mostly it is open on the daylight and the afternoon tours.
Okay, and Mr. Shack, we have somebody manning the place when it's open, somebody actually inside at a desk, is that right?
I can get that answer for you, Councilman. I'm speaking for the next bill, but let me see if I can get somebody to hop on for you to answer those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Previously, yes.
Yes.
There was actually someone in the substation, so residents could walk in off the street if they needed service.
Okay, I'm supportive. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 914.
Bill 914, Resolution amending Resolution Number 725 of 2021, authorizing the Mayor and Director of the Department of Public Safety to enter on behalf of the City of Pittsburgh into a Fifth Amended Professional Services Agreement or agreements with Johnson Controls for continued security camera integration and support services at an additional cost of $381,700, and extending such agreements for an additional 6 months, and increasing the overall agreement compensation to $6,570,257.
Motion to approve, please, with brief discussion.
Second with discussion, too.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Councilman.
Yeah, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, just to kind of speak on the bill, this is, it's obviously to continue the maintenance that we have for the locations that are varied throughout the city, as well as the access control that are in city facilities and some of our other security enhancements that we have. So this will be provide a 6-month extension for the maintenance that we have and allow us in January to take this out to RFP to kind of redo the terms.
Okay, just a quick question. I don't know how to ask what I want to ask. I was going to ask you sort of what is the big picture? Of course, it's to take it out to RFP. Are we doing that because it is required, or is there some dissatisfaction with the service that we're receiving from Johnson Controls?
No, Johnson Controls has been great with us. We're just kind of trying to take it out to RFP as the system has grown. So the terms of the original contracts need to be kind of updated a little bit to kind of accommodate where we've been with the system, some additional interfaces, and ensuring that some of the things that have been asked for from other city departments, that we can include those in the overall services for this contract. So it's not a dissatisfaction, it's just ensuring that as the growth of the system has expanded, we could accommodate that with some of the other asks that we've gotten.
Okay, great. I have always viewed you as our go-to for everything camera related and security related as it relates to camera technology. And so I trust your judgment, and I appreciate you being here this morning, and I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Councilman. Always a call away for anybody that needs anything.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Madam President.
I just wanted to know the same thing. Maybe we can have a posted or a briefing with council. I'd like to know what the bigger picture is with cameras. Are we talking about increasing their use across the city? What we're doing with the system. So I'd like to know a little bit more. And we're actually getting a council person on who actually understands technology a lot better than I do. So that will be helpful. So I think maybe down the road we'll schedule a briefing.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dan, for all your work. You're amazing.
Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you. I'm happy to save my detailed questions for a future briefing, sure. And Dan, thank you for your work and for being here today. Can you remind me, these are cameras, security cameras that are in location citywide. Can you remind us what is, how the data that's collected from the cameras is handled?
Good morning, Councilman. So yes, all the data obviously follows the public safety and security camera ordinance, that mandates, the retention period, the use period, any type of, utilization of that technology. So that's outlined. The data is, stored for 10 days, and then after 10 days, it's kind of, you're recorded over, and the retention period starts again for that. As far as kind of utilization, there's kind of strict guidelines on the utilization of the cameras, how they could be used, special event driven, incident driven, and then all the cameras are mounted on public utility poles in the public right of way, faced towards the area where there's no expectation of privacy.
Thank you. And is any of this shared with entities outside of the city of Pittsburgh?
We have video sharing agreements with other kind of intergovernmental partners that allow us to kind of bring some feeds in for special events. But as far as streamed or available outside publicly, none of that is available. Any video footage that's necessary for criminal type of criminal case, may be shared with other prosecuting agencies.
Okay. Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman Wilson.
All right, well, I look forward to the the post agenda if that's going to happen. But I'll just ask some direct questions now. Thanks, Dan Shack, for being online. I wanted to just ask about the expansion of the current system. In the current system, just so I can understand, this is a camera that doesn't have to be integrated with ShotSpotter, or they all have to be integrated with ShotSpotter?
No, sir. So the overall kind of contract is for the public safety security initiative. So that is the access control, how you swipe in the council chambers. That is the cameras that are mounted at street level, that are attached to the utility poles. That's the cameras that integrate with ShotSpotter for the gunshot detection aspect of it. As of currently, we do not have any forecasted expansions or additions of cameras on the table. The last kind of year that there were any additional cameras or equipment that was funded, was 2020, 2021, 22, and now into 23 is basically just the maintenance to keep what we have operational. We have had numerous kind of community requests and 311 requests that are coming in from residents, that it would be nice to see a camera here or here or here. So that's some funding that we would be obviously seeking for the future to be able to accommodate those. But just when we talk about the expansion of the maintenance contract, there are some disparate systems that may come in as far as the access control or some other things that may be necessary that weren't kind of part of the original. That would be something that we would look to kind of have covered under that contract rather than covering those repairs on a as needed basis.
Thanks. So if you wanted to add additional cameras, you can do that with the current type of camera we have or system.
The hopes would that when this goes out for RFP after the 6-month extension period and we start that that we would put provisions in there to, allow the, expansion, additional camera equipment, the specifications in there, pending funding dedicated for additional cameras. Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Coghill?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Dan, maybe you answered this, I may have missed it. How many cameras are we talking about here citywide?
We're in the area of 1,000 cameras citywide, sir.
1,000 cameras and posted in every part of the city?
Correct. We have coverage, across the city, based upon, previous crime statistics, previous community, kind of requests. They come in through 311, and all locations, for mounting and affixing, fall under the camera ordinance to ensure that we're kind of being held responsible to that.
Right. And you may not have this information, but do you know how many are in District 4?
I could follow up with you later on.
Okay. In the brunt of the expense, is it in the camera itself or the collection of the data and everything that goes along with that?
So when we're looking at kind of the additions, we have to have kind of the infrastructure for the cameras to ride on. Then we have to have kind of the on the backside of things, the data to allow us to store that video and the infrastructure to support that. And that's something that we work in concert with the Department of Innovation and Performance to ensure that they are able to accommodate any additional cameras that we want. That's currently one of kind of our cogs in the wheel, is ensuring that their infrastructure is able to support any additions that we would like to forecast.
Okay, so the expense is distributed equally, whether it's the camera, the data-driven, the programs that you need to have to collect it. Is that fair?
That would be fair, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I have second round?
Not yet, still on first round. Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've had long conversations about cameras in the past, and I just wanted to kind of reflect that I remember when community organizations were installing their own cameras, kind of in the early 2000s, that were not integrated with the police cameras. I remember where we had kind of worked separately even, 8 years ago or so, with the DA's office on a different set of cameras, and having our police chief, our director of public safety here at the table, uncomfortable with the two different systems at the time. And we have put the kind of use ordinance in place. We have banned facial recognition technology, if I'm recalling. But Officer, I want to follow up on the line of questioning that Councilwoman Strasburger started. She asked if you are sharing the video. And you said only with governmental partners. And so I'm curious, I'd like you to identify those governmental partners.
Surely. So if there is a criminal act and that there is evidentiary video that is obtained for that, that video would be shared with the district attorney's office for prosecution. It's not like the video is being shared with third-party entities to process that video and analyze that video and utilize it for any type of analytics. It's simply basically video that needs to be utilized in a court case that Pittsburgh police are using for prosecution. Does that answer it better for you?
So you have shared video with the district attorney of Allegheny County's office. Have you shared it with any other governmental partners?
I cannot speak to that directly. What court cases that there may have been something that would be shared above and beyond that. But if there is a case that is being prosecuted by the DA's office, yes, video would need to be shared as part of the court proceedings.
So I'm going to have to refresh myself on our facial recognition ordinance, but do any of the partners that you've shared with, even though you can't recollect who those partners are specifically in this conversation, use facial recognition technology? And
To
have
my
they?
knowledge, to my knowledge, no, ma'am.
No, but you don't know. You're not sure which partners we've shared it with, and so you can't speak to whether or not they use facial recognition technology. I think I'm gonna abstain today, and I am wondering kind of the extent of our sharing video. I think I've heard you say that we have shared it if there's an ongoing court matter. I'm not sure if I heard you say you only share it if there's an ongoing court matter. And so I think I have a lot more questions than when we started out of this conversation. I'm glad to hear that you're abiding by the ordinance to kind of delete or overwrite the video. I think it was 10 days. And then on cameras in general, just to go back to my reflections, it's like the genie's out of the bottle. You know, I know that we've actually used people's Ring doorbells video feeds to find, you know, burglars in Highland Park. I know that we've used ATM bank machine cameras in Pittsburgh to catch, you know, homicide actors. So we again, I don't want to have a long conversation today. We've had long conversations about kind of like how comfortable are we and the public with these kind of video surveillance technologies. But maybe after our briefing or someday soon, it might be time to kind of revisit it, because it's changed radically in the last handful of years since we talked about it at the table. So that's all the questions I have right now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Second round, Councilman Kraus.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I would like to follow up just briefly in the same vein as Councilwomen Strasburger and Gross. To enlighten some of the newer members and perhaps even people that are watching, I think the only two members of council that were present when we wrote the camera privacy policy are myself and Councilman Burgess. So that I was chairing the Public Safety Committee when we did that. I want to say it was probably my first or second year in office. So probably back in 2009 and 2010, when along with Gwen Moore and the public safety leadership, we crafted the camera privacy policy. Now, I know under our previous director of public safety, there was desire to revisit the camera privacy policy and to update where it may be necessary. So, Dan, I just would like to offer my services, having been reappointed to Public Safety Committee by Madam President, that if there is desire, and I think it's reasonable, given the 10, 12-ish more years that have passed, if there is desire to revisit the camera privacy policy. I would like to offer my services. I would be very happy to work with you. It was done legislatively, members, and it was something that the body did vote on, much like our consideration of rules at this point in time. But if I can be of assistance, I would like to offer my services to revisit that, and of course bring members' concerns into an updated policy where applicable. So, just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, that's very much appreciated, Councilman. We'll definitely take you up on that offer and kind of start the dialogue to begin that process.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate your leadership.
President?
So Councilman Burgess has first round. Do you mind?
No, sorry, President Burgess.
I won't be long. Probably my first or second year on council. I traveled to Chicago and then eventually San Francisco. Traveled to Chicago to look at their integrated system using cameras and ShotSpotter in order to diagnose crime and traffic patterns, all that sort of stuff. and was fortunate enough to go to San Francisco to the headquarters of ShotSpotter to watch their lab and how other cities across the nation use the ShotSpotter technology. I just want to put a placeholder on this conversation. In some of the communities that I represent, in terms of where there's high crime, when I talk to my residents, I can tell you what they'll tell you, because I could tell you what they told me. The question they're going to ask me is, if we're going to have cameras, can I put the camera in front of their house? That's what they're going to say. And so I want to make it very clear that I do understand the liberty, and we have to have this careful conversation. But in areas where there's high amounts of violence, high amounts of shootings, there are people in that community who welcome advanced technology, welcome license plate readers, welcome more security cameras, because their reality is different. And so as we have this conversation, we have to balance this, right? We have to always balance personal liberty, but I want to at least put a pin in the other side of the conversation, right? That there are places that are being rebuilt but not yet rebuilt, where there's dangerous activity. And for those communities, increased camera presence would be welcome in their community, probably with facial recognition technology, probably that would be for them, it would be a comfort. And so I want to certainly suggest that this conversation that we need to revisit is not, it has various points of view, and we need to examine it from a variety of perspectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam President.
I just pretty much was going to say pretty much what you just said, is that in my district, in areas that have high crime, they want police, they want cameras, they want everything. And if you were a victim of a crime, you'd understand that, I think. But I think what they're tired of, my district is tired of hearing us talking as a council, living in the areas that pretty much most of us live in pretty safe neighborhoods, talking about what they should have in their community to be safe, and not hearing them and what they want to be safe. And a lot of people feel like they want, they want security. They want to feel safe in their neighborhoods. They want their children to be able to play on the street like your kids, like our kids. And we've had things here and there in our neighborhoods, but nothing compared to what some of our neighborhoods go through every single day. And so I think when we start having these conversations, we need to make sure that we're talking to Councilman Burgess's district, my district, Councilman Lavelle's district, Councilman Krause's district, where there is, and now Councilman Wilson's district, where there never was crime like this before, but he's, experiencing a lot, because I think, as Councilman Burgess pointed out, some of the programs we're doing are working, but it's moving crime. And so it's shifting and moving, and things are happening. So I think the more we talk about crime, and the more we talk about policing, the more we talk about cameras, the more we talk about drones, which we haven't addressed really a lot lately, but is a concern, we better really start having some more conversations and be more inclusive with our conversations, and stop telling people what they need, stop telling people what they want, and let's hear what they need and what they want. And let's really look into what's going to really affect crime, and help people feel safer in their neighborhoods. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Coghill.
Yes. Mr. Shack, I just want to reiterate that I am very interested as to how many cameras lie within District 4. And on top of that, I would like to know the locations, if that's possible. And my question is this, though. I sat with Steven Zappala, our district attorney, a few years back, and they have my district really covered well. I mean, you can't drive into Carrick, commit a crime, without us recognizing that license plate within a matter of minutes. I'm just curious as to our cooperation with the DA's office on it. At the time, it wasn't very good, I could tell you. The previous administration and the DA didn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just wondering, are we duplicating what the DA's office already has covered in most of my district? And what is our cooperation efforts with the DA's office today?
Surely, Councilman. So I'd be glad to follow up with you later to kind of outline the coverage within your district and how many cameras are kind of inclusive of District 4. As far as the kind of the cooperation with the District Attorney's Office, they have a project that is similar to ours, where they have an initiative where they are covering a lot of the communities and the outskirts of the city, and then some locations within the city. When we look at some of the locations that were done, we did have kind of some infancy meetings with them to kind of discuss, hey, here's where we have coverage, here's where we don't have coverage, here's where we could kind of work together on that. They have a project that is ongoing that some of our detectives have been in conversation with them as of recently, of how we can ensure that we're not duplicating efforts as they move on with their project, and we're not kind of deploying things that they already have, and vice versa. So be more than happy to follow up with you on the coverage in District 4 and where we're at with that.
Okay, well, that's good to know. It's comforting to know. The other thing was there, at the time, this is going back 3-4 years, their license plate recognition, I thought was really, really great. To be able to zero in on a license plate of every car that came up Noble's Lane, say, for instance. Does our cameras have that equal technology as well?
We do, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Before third round, just for clarity, are you able to take requests for additional locations for cameras now, Mr. Shack?
We have been I have a listing that comes from both communities, from the police, from 311 requests, and also from council themselves. We have been kind of tallying those up, kind of working towards those locations, and as innovation and performance is able to allow additional capacity to store that video and additional funding is dedicated to add those cameras, we have a priority list to work down. Currently, we're in the process that any time that we have a need for a camera that is a critical nature, we have to kind of shift things from one location to another that the camera may have deterred away and it's no longer applicable to that location. But looking towards the future, that list is growing, and additional funding in support for that would be greatly appreciated, to be able to kind of deploy another large round like we did in the late 2018, 2019, 2020 timeframe.
Okay, thank you. Third round, Councilwoman Gross. Oh, I apologize. I thought you went the second time. Sorry.
Just for clarification. So, excuse me, Officer, now I've got the text file open in front of me, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding the costs correctly. Well, I'm just confused by the actual amendment that's in front of us, which is to add an additional cost of $381,700. So that it brings the total package compensation up to $6,570,000. So it says the funds shall be chargeable and payable from the following chart of accounts that start in 2013. So I actually just don't understand the layout. Usually, we kind of have a side-by-side of what accounts are the funds being deducted from, and then what accounts are the funds being added to, so we can see the source of funds and then the new location of the funds. And in this text file, it kind of goes back to 2013 when it was just $50,000, 2017 when it was just about $400,000, 2018 was over almost $2.5 million. And so there's, can you explain? Is the $6 million, if we're averaging like $300,000 or $400,000 a year, is the $6.5 million contract like a 15-year contract? What's happening here?
It is not, so I'd be more than happy to kind of outline it for you. So in 2017, we went out to RFP for a professional services agreement for the security camera maintenance, service, and integration for that. So that was for 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, into 22. What we are coming to the table for today is for the professional services for the first and second quarter of 2023. As you will see kind of in the amendment, during some of those years, there was additional funding for equipments and supplies. That was to do additional cameras based upon the ShotSpotter expansion. So when we expanded ShotSpotter, in the 2018 timeframe, from the original 3 square miles to the additional 15 square miles for a total of 18, we deployed cameras that works in concert with ShotSpotter to be able to do that. The 2013 $53,578 dollar encumbrance was funding that was left from the original ShotSpotter deployment that was done in Zone 5. There was some funding that was determined that was left over from that project, so that was utilized to deploy additional cameras to the Zone 5 area, with that money that was left from that. So it was added to this contract. So you'll see that there are professional services, there's equipment and supplies, and then there's some kind of licensure and software upgrades that were kind of deployed for that. That is just to kind of bring the system up to the latest version. Any type of reoccurring licensing costs for the additional cameras that were added, and then the professional services would be a pole is struck by a vehicle and we need to go out and recover that equipment, rehang it. Cameras are cleaned on a quarterly basis. There are other proactive measures, when the trees kind of have leaves on them, and we have to do some other aspects of re-aiming infrastructure. That's all covered under this contract, as well as power outages and any type of break fixes.
So we're adding $381,700 to the total contract, right? That's in the title. And that's only for 6 months.
That is correct.
So it takes us to like June of 2023.
Correct.
Okay, so this contract, the kind of professional services contract, on average then would be, closer to $800,000 a year on an annualized basis.
The quarterly maintenance that was paid for a full year for 2022 for per the calendar year was $498,555. With it being a 6-month extension, with kind of some of the additional costs that we're seeing go up. Obviously fuel costs going up anytime a bucket truck has to go, supplies and for break fixes. That that obviously is up a little bit from there. So if we were to have basically a full year of maintenance there.
That's okay. You answered the question. So what I still don't see, and what I'd like to see by Tuesday, I don't know if other members are kind of seeing what I'm seeing, but I still don't see the kind of debit column and the credit column. Like the monies come from where, which of the old line items are reduced, or where's this $381,000 coming from?
I believe it would be coming from the account string ending in 2023.
And that was what? That's the 2023 is what is the new amended one.
Correct. So that would be the account string that the 381,700 would be loaded to for that.
But not where it's from. You know what? We don't need to. We've already talked about, I think, cameras for a long time. But I think before Tuesday, I would like to see kind of where the funds are coming from more plainly, because this text files just doesn't look like the text files that we're used to when you've got basically an overrun, or you're amending a bill and going over what we originally approved. In the public record, usually we see, okay, so we need to add money to this budget line, and so we're taking it from somewhere else. But I'm not going to go on any longer on this. I just need it, I think we need it by Tuesday. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Madam President?
Just briefly, introduce yourself for the public and tell us where the funding's coming from.
Peter McDevitt, City Council Budget Director. This money is coming from the Public Safety 2023 budget. So you'll be encumbering money for next year's budget today.
Do you have anything to say about it?
I'm sure that they want to get this under contract and don't want to wait until the end of the year whenever council passes its final budget to make sure that the money's in there. So they probably want to get all of this through the entire law process to amend their contract sooner rather than later.
So I would suggest if we have any additional comments, then we talk to the administration before next week. Does that sound good? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
One abstention?
Abstain.
Two abstentions. Affirmative recommendation. Thank you. That takes us to Public Works Committee, chaired by Councilman Coghill. First new paper is Bill 907.
Bill 907, an ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code, Title 5, Traffic, Article 7, Parking, Chapter 541, General Parking Regulations, by revising Section 541.04B, entitled Smart Loading Zones, to extend the Smart Loading Zone pilot program from 1 year to 3 years.
Motion to approve, brief discussion.
Second.
Discussion, Councilman?
So, I read up on this a little bit. I think it's really smart, for congested neighborhoods. I don't typically have this issue up in Brookline or Beechview or Carrick, but I just wanted to open the floor for those of you who might have questions about it.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilman Coghill. Working through this on the Parking Authority Board was interesting because at first it seemed like, people, are we just putting this on the business owner? Do they want this? And the pilot program started out, and you might know this already, but literally it was all the business owners that wanted it because people were taking up their, the enforcement wasn't there to ticket people that were in the zone that shouldn't be during those times. My question is for the director, or maybe there's a assistant director online of DOMI. Yeah, I know. I was looking at one.
What's that TV on?
Anyone? No?
Jeff, are you with us? There he is.
Sorry about that. I'm having a computer. Yeah, I'm actually bringing in Angie Martinez to the discussion. She was the one who spearheaded this. She's the assistant director of DOMI. So I'm trying to get a hold of Angie right now. She is online, but I think she's having audio trouble right now. Let me see if I can get a hold of her. I apologize.
Yeah, I do see her. She's currently on mute.
I'm just going to say, I really think they should be here in person. They should really be here in person.
Angie, you there?
Good afternoon. This is Angie. Yeah.
All right.
Can folks hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I apologize for the technical difficulties.
Well, thanks. My question is just, do we have, so I know during the pilot period, it was, there was questions about the enforcement, specifically, is it happening? And also, are we, how far along down the line are we for ticket by mail?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the meters are currently, or the loading zones, are currently being enforced. Registered users are paying fees, for the use of those zones. There is some ticketing that's happening for folks that are, not registered and parking illegally. However, that's a highly manual process right now because the parking authority is currently not enabled to do the ticket by mail, so they have to, be out there with a parking enforcement officer in order to actually enforce the zone. DOMI is working in collaboration with the parking authority and our law department to hopefully make ticket by mail something that the city is able to do to enforce these loading zones. It's definitely of interest. It's just taken time to get necessary provisions in place to realize it. But we recognize that with ticket by mail enforcement would definitely become easier and smoother for an application like this.
So let me just understand. So this application is unique because we literally have cameras focused on this area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't even need an enforcement officer to drive by and scan the plate. Like literally, they can just send the tickets out. I don't know. I guess maybe there'd be like some grace period, but it would keep that loading zone open during those times because people would know as soon as you pull in there, you might get a ticket. So I just want to verify like that is the case. Like we have, when I was briefed on this previously, when it was the pilot program, there's cameras on the spot. Is that true?
There are cameras. They're more in line with license plate readers. They're not cameras like the CCTV or cameras that were discussed in the prior bill that you were discussing. My understanding is that we are not actually, because of the limitations under the parking code, the parking authority is not issuing permits for vehicles that are not registered users based on the license plate reading technology. What's happening is that registered users of those loading zone areas are paying and they're being billed by their plate being registered and read for the time that they're in the loading zone. But we don't have the ability to right now turn around and issue enforcement tickets for non-registered users of the zones at this point. And I can clarify that with our program manager and also the parking authority. But that is my understanding with the way that the enforcement is working for non-registered users. And part of the reason why the ticket by mail is, so key to us being able to enforce the zone.
Another question I have is this being extended to 3 years? So are we also expanding the amount of loading zones, smart loading zones?
So the extension for the smart loading zone is still considered pilot phase. The way the original legislation was entered was for that 1-year pilot, but the partners that we're working with, Automotive, CMU, and also with the Department of Energy using some grant funds, had always intended that this pilot period would actually be for 3 years. So part of the renewal today is to, bring the term of the pilot in line with the partnerships that are happening. We have not discussed, converting every single loading zone to smart loading zone. Part of the opportunity of doing a pilot is that, we can use this as a time period to see if that makes sense or not. Currently, the smart loading zones are in primarily downtown in Oakland, so our busiest commercial districts. And so I think we'd want to see, how smart loading plays in maybe more residential or not residential districts, but less commercial corridors, if you will, before we would, convert every loading zone we have. We'd want to make sure it was appropriate for the use.
Maybe I missed it, but just to clarify, you do have the ability to add another one in this 3-year additional year extension, or 3-year.
Apologies if I misunderstood the question. Yes, so we will have the ability to add new smart loading zone locations.
All right. So the only other question I have is, how much revenue are we picking up in this agreement?
So we did look at how much has been captured in the pilot period. It's under $2,000, and that has to do with, I think, a number of things. The limited ability for the enforcement, but also because, we are in a one-year period and not all of the locations have been installed for the entire year.
Okay, so the opportunity here is not
done
the opportunity here is not the amount of money, but just be able to keep that business, running the way they want to. Okay, all right, thanks. I have no further questions.
Mr. Chair, may I have?
I've got Councilman Strasburger, Councilman Burgess, and then Councilman Kraus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Assistant Director Martinez, for being here. I know that there was a briefing on the smart loading zone pilot, and our office attended, and it was interesting. And I think it's a really interesting step in the right direction in terms of being able to enforce. Once it sounds like we have the ability to actually implement ticket by mail, the enforcement piece will be ramped up. I guess my question is a little bit broader than just this. There have been, I think, at least I've heard about an increase in cases where delivery drivers are parking right in the bike lanes, whether it's Penn Avenue downtown, despite there being flex posts, or the newly installed lane on South Aiken extending up to Liberty. Even when we try to get police in there, or I guess parking authority in there to enforce, it's happening. And so the discussion around this turns then to, if we ramp up enforcement to the point where no one is, anyone who is a delivery driver is regularly getting ticketed when parking a bike lane, are there enough delivery zones or loading zones in those concentrated areas? Do we believe that whether they're smart loading zones, whether they're not smart loading zones, that we have enough, say, in downtown area to redirect delivery drivers to say, you shouldn't have to park in the bike lane because we have them at X, Y, and Z places? Or have we done an audit of some of these busier commercial areas like downtown in Oakland? And I'm sure there are a number of other commercial areas that could use this. Kind of where are we in that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think you are right to be, pointing out the relationship between, the availability and demands for loading with some of, the illegal behaviors that we observe. Parking in the cycle track, blocking the bike lane is certainly something that we're aware of. We also see instances of vehicles parking or double parking in the travel lane for loading and unloading. So it's certainly an issue that, there's a need for loading, and we need to make sure that we have the right number of spaces in the right locations to accommodate that. I do think that, the issue is both one of enforcement and availability of loading zones. And, we need to work with, parking and public safety to make sure that, there's enforcement happening when people are blocking a travel lane, whether that travel lane is a vehicle travel lane or a bicycle travel lane, a bike lane or a cycle track.
Thank you.
I do think there's opportunities to do this, in downtown in Oakland, especially.
Mm-hmm. And just to follow up, so if I understand it correctly, with these smart loading zones, parking authority has authority to enforce. In other loading zones, who is enforcing?
That is a great question, and I don't want to misspeak. I believe it is the parking authority. possibly public safety.
Okay. That's fine. If you want to follow up on that with me later,
can
that's
follow
fine.
up.
Yeah, I'm just curious because it's a bigger conversation I'd like to be having here, not just with regard to the smart loading zones. I understand the danger of the double parking and parking in the cartway and the travel lane, but I'm particularly concerned about parking in the bike lane because when bikers have to swerve in and out of the bike lane into traffic, they're much more vulnerable than someone in a car. So that's my main concern here. But I'll leave it at that for now. I'll look forward to the answer around enforcement, and I appreciate you being here and all the work on this.
Thank you. Reverend Burns?
So I want to make a point that's not connected to this bill. I'm going to say something now that I think that's been bothering me for a while. My daughter, shouldn't say this, but my daughter for the last 10 years has a habit of cooking and going upstairs in her room. She will make Asian food or stir fry things or put on teapots and then go upstairs in her room. And I come downstairs and the pot's over boiling, and she's been doing this for years. And I try to tell her, look, if you're going to cook, you have to be in the room where the food is cooking, right? You have to be able to monitor it. And my daughter's doing very well, but she's burned up some things, right, in the kitchen. She'll kill me for saying that's true. And this situation we're on in council kind of reminds me of that, right? We're trying to cook things, and we have all these people who are not in the room. They're on Facebook, not Facebook, they're on Zoom. This is not, for me, and I teach on Zoom, I teach remotely, I know how to use the technology. But for me, this isn't working. And so I believe the directors should, if we're here, COVID is over, the directors should be in the room. Their physical presence is important. Hearing them from on high as they come in remotely, I can't follow the conversation, I can't see facial expressions, I can't relate. And so I want to say, I think that we should start demanding that the directors respect council and come in with their physical presence. And if they can't come with their physical presence, then we hold their bills until they're capable of coming and having conversations with us. This is not working for me. I can't follow the conversation, and so I've tried to take it as long as I can. I cannot take this anymore. So I am suggesting that to the president and to members of council, it's time now for the directors to come back and show their respect to council and be physically present in the room to give us their input on our legislation. This is not working for me. It's time, at least for me, this is not working. We're burning up pots, and I'm not getting clarity. So that's just, when I listened to this conversation today, was just too much. The cameras are down, I can't see faces, I don't know. It's like, I'm hearing, it's like confessional. This is not working for me. And so I don't know what we have to do, but I am strongly suggesting council, COVID's over, right? We're not socially distanced from each other. We are now back, and so it's time for the directors to come back and show up in person if they want us to deal with these pieces of legislation.
Well, I've got Councilman Kraus, then I'll come back to you. Councilman Kraus?
Mr. Chair? Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, hi, Angela. My comments are comments. They're not directed at you in any way, but they do express a real heightened level of frustration with the unwillingness of the parking authority to do ticket by mail. We have been working diligently through our parking enhancement district in the South Side, the better part of 6 months or longer with parking authority to do ticket by mail. And we have a meeting scheduled. It is early December, first week of December, with Director Honorado to pursue this this way of ticketing again, and largely out of our frustration. It was part of the Southside Planning Forum again this month, wondering how and why this has not been implemented yet, and why we are not taking full advantage of it. The parking authority agrees that they already have the right and the technology to do ticket by mail. We have worked with State Representative Jessica Bennett. She has been brought into the conversations with the parking authority as well, and has shown clearly under state law, we are correct in our assumption that parking authority under state law has the right to issue ticket by mail. There just seems to be a steadfast resistance to actually doing it. I'm reaching a real level of frustration with it, because the revenue that is generated by our parking enhancement district is largely dependent on effective enforcement, that people are indeed feeding the meters when they are required to do so. On nights that we have effective enforcement out there, we average about $1,500 in collection, $1,300 to $1,500 a night. On a night we don't have collection, this week it was $380. Over the last 6 months or so, while we've been having these conversations with Parking Authority about doing ticket by mail, I guesstimate we've lost about $40,000 to $50,000 in revenue that would be clearly beneficial to the parking enhancement district and the services that it provides to East Carson Street. So again, Angela, these comments, my frustration is not directed at you in any way. It's really more to enlighten members that are here at the table right now about how diligent I and some of us have been around launching ticket by mail, and the benefit of ticket by mail, and the fact that we already possess the legal authority to do ticket by mail. We just simply meet resistance to change over to the program and actually launch it. So again, with members, I share that I have a meeting with Director Honorado and other contributing partners coming up first week of December, and I'm happy to share what comes out of that meeting with members at large. But it is a technology that does exist, and that we do have the technological resource to do it, and we have the legal authority to do it. So thank you for letting me register my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam President and Councilwoman Gross.
I just want to say to Councilman Burgess's comments about people being here in person, our former clerk, Brenda Pree, did send an email to directors telling them that they need to be here in person. So I will work now with our current clerk to draft an agenda when we do the agenda, to make sure if they cannot be here, we'll hold the bills. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you. I'd like to just follow up on several things. I also have been meeting with the Parking Authority for the entirety of 2022 about creating the Lawrenceville Parking Enhancement District, which we like to call Mobility Enhancement Districts. It has different uses. Members who've been here a long time will recall that we didn't do the Lawrenceville one back in 2015 because Southside was the pilot. For a variety of bumps, COVID included, we were going to launch it in 2020, and so we've been waiting. And so it seems like Parking Authority has been having the same conversation about ticket by mail with several members. And maybe it's time that we kind of have a briefing, explicitly just on that topic, so we can get a little more deeply into what can be done and cannot be done. And that's why, Director, if you don't mind, Director Martinez, if you would just clarify your earlier comments that I was having trouble figuring out. I understood you to say that in the smart loading zones, that there are cameras that read license plates, and that you are able to fine users that are registered in the system if they aren't current in their payments, I think, or something, to be registered users of the zone. Is that what you said?
So the registered users pay for the time that they are using the zone. So the revenue that has been collected, the people that are billed are people who register for the loading zone, register as a part of the pilot, and they pay for the time that they're there. They are not.
Okay, so they're
there's
billed
not
by
an
time.
enforcement.
Okay, so they're
Correct.
billed by time, and then, so your cameras are there, that they're reading the license plates of the registered users, and that they know how much time they've been spent in the zones, and then you're billing accordingly. Did you also say that, like, let's say I'm not a registered user, and I go and I park in a smart loading zone. Did you say that you can or cannot, ticket me?
You can be ticketed, but it would be under the parking authorities enforcement of the loading zone.
All right, so let me ask that differently. To date, has the parking authority ticketed anyone who is a non-registered user who should not have been there but was there?
I do not know if they have. I do know that they can.
Okay, all right. So that gives us something to work with, so we can pursue that, I think, in a briefing separately. So I'm going to kind of stop asking about that specific ticket by mail question. And then also, I just want to disclose that I don't have any kind of personal conflict on this legislation. I don't have any personal benefit, but my husband has been involved on the CMU team, I believe, that we're working with. So I'm looking kind of at our solicitors at the table. I don't think I get any personal benefits. He's just an employee of CMU. No, he's just, my husband runs the Center for Intelligent Transportation at the Heinz College. And, also there's a transportation
used him
safety.
before in our district.
And has, assisted other council members in projects in their district, and runs I think the Department of Engineering is the kind of transportation safety. It's a federal Department of Transportation University research centers. There are only a handful across the country, and so, he's helped raise like $50 or $60 million from the federal government to CMU. And then he's currently he's teaching a capstone class analyzing these policies in our Oakland neighborhood. But I don't think I have a conflict, but maybe I'll abstain today and I can clarify by Tuesday, or if we're passing or if we're holding. So again, I don't see any personal benefit there, but I'll just be better safe than sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Coghill?
Yes. Thank you. Just to be clear, Reverend Burgess, I couldn't agree with you more about, directors being here. The conversation's more fluent and it's faster. Okay, so I hope that, in the future, our directors will appear in person or send somebody in person at least. And Angie, thanks for being with us. I just want to clarify two things I think are important to note here. In our loading zones, the fee, so say for instance you're registered with the city of Pittsburgh, we have that technology, we know what to charge them. The fee after 5 minutes, there's an incentive to be there to get in and out quickly, because the fee then triples after 5 minutes. Is that correct?
I would need to verify what the fee structure looks like. I do know it is a pay by minute. I don't want to misspeak as to if it escalates. I do know something we've seen is an increase in turnover in the loading zones that are smart, and that's part of the intent and benefit is that there's turnover happening in those loading areas, but I can clarify that.
Okay, so what I read on this was that, the fee went up, I think it was 3 times the initial amount per minute within the first 5 minutes. And to Councilwoman Gross's question, so and I just want to be clear on this too, we have the ability to charge by mail because of their registered through some technology with us, the people who are registered to use that loading zone. But we do not have the technology by mail to fine people who are not registered who so choose to park in that spot, right? We have to rely on traditional, parking authority meaning somebody has to walk upon it and ticket them, or public safety has to. Is that, did I understand that right?
The issue with the enforcement by mail is not so much a technical issue. It's not that we don't have the technology to read the license plate and issue, and by we, I mean the Pittsburgh Parking Authority, does not have the ability to read or issue a ticket. It's that there's been some conversation as to whether or not they are legally able to do that for on-street parking spaces. And this is to Councilman Kraus and Councilman Gross's earlier points, some of the ongoing conversations that DOMI has been involved with the parking authority to better understand under state code where the authority for parking authority to be able to issue those tickets by mail is. It's an ongoing conversation. I will say that there is interest, and everyone recognizes the benefit on the enforcement side of parking authority being able to issue tickets by mail. However, the conversation is, are the provisions there to be able to do that?
Okay,
and that's the conversation
that's fine. That's fine. I guess I'm just still a little unclear, but we've belabored it long enough. Okay, we'll figure it out. Thanks.
Sorry. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
And I just want to thank
One
Jeff
abstention.
Scallion for coming down here.
Councilman Gross abstended. So affirmative recommendation. That takes us to Bill 908.
Bill 908, resolution providing for an amended reimbursement agreement or agreements with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for costs associated with the preliminary engineering phase of the Swindell Bridge construction project and providing for the payment of the cost thereof not to exceed $1,700,000, an increase of $900,000 from the previously executed agreement, reimbursable at 95%, and the municipal share of Commonwealth incurred costs not to exceed $1,500, a $0 increase from the previously executed agreements.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Yeah.
Councilman Wilson?
Director, if you know something about this bill, could you approach the table? Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jeff Scallion. I'm the Deputy Director of DOMI.
Morning, Jeff.
How are you?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess I could take the notes that you have, and I might have a question, yeah.
Sure. Last time we came to council was to get the federal funds on the Transportation Improvement Program. So we were able to get the $900,000 last time we came to council. We did hire a designer, and we negotiated to the I forget how much it is. I don't have my notes with me. So we do have a designer on contract right now, and we're starting the preliminary engineering phase for Swindell.
For the what phase?
PE, so it's entry level to engineering. So we're going to start the engineering for Swindell.
For the full rehab?
Mm-hmm.
So, what about the to fix the one way? Well, to bring the whole bridge to two way. There was going to be one.
So we're doing some construction, some little construction work now. We have a contractor out there, but this is to actually put the whole entire bridge under design. So
Okay.
this will be the bigger project.
This is the bigger project.
That's the
but-
bigger
but
one.
The current fix to bring it back to two way.
Yep, that's going through now.
Going through.
Construction, sorry.
Okay.
This is for design.
All right, great. So they'll be able to do that in the winter.
Yes.
All right, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I just want to thank you for coming in when you heard us calling for somebody to come in. So I want to thank you for coming in. I
Sure.
appreciate it, because you're not the director, but I do appreciate that you came in.
And look how easy it was.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
And we'll talk with her to make sure.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 909.
Bill 909, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh to enter into a supplemental agreement or agreements with CDR McGuire, Inc. for project design management services and reviews in connection with various City of Pittsburgh projects to add funding for the construction and preliminary engineering phases, increasing the total not to exceed amount of $3,157,268.61 from an agreement and an increase of $1,206,117.85.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That takes us to Land Use and Economic Development
Thank you, Jeff.
Committee, which is chaired by Councilman Wilson. Our first deferred paper is, actually, can we read? No, oh, sorry. Those aren't the same. Bill 747.
Bill 747, resolution approving a new institutional master plan under the Pittsburgh Code, Title 9 Zoning, Article 2, Chapter 905, Section 905.03.d, and Article 7, Chapter 922, Section 922.12.g for Carnegie Mellon University, entitled Carnegie Mellon University Institutional Master Plan 2022, dated September 2022, on property zoned EMI, Educational Medical Institution District, 4th, 7th, and 14th Wards, Council Districts number 8 and 5.
Motion to approve.
Second with discussion. Thank you.
Discussion, Council President?
I just want to thank Councilwoman Strasburger for chairing the meeting for me. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Strasburg.
Yeah, if the representatives from Carnegie Mellon would like to approach the table, please. And thank you, Council President. I appreciate that, and I'm always happy to chair for something so large in the district. So if you wouldn't mind, if you're going to speak, just say your name and your title. And what I would love for you to do is just I know that you could give probably the 5-minute version, the 15-minute version, the 60-minute version, the 5-hour version, just the short elevator pitch on what this project is. It's a huge 10-year institutional master plan for one of the biggest economic generators in the region. I really wanted fellow council members to understand what the high points are of it.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilperson. My name is Bob Retby, R-E-P-P-E. I'm the university architect, Carnegie Mellon University, 5000 Forbes Avenue, 1522213, joined by
Jennifer Beck, project manager, 5000 Forbes Avenue, 15213.
And Megan Pierce, project associate with CMU and campus design, also at 5000 Forbes Avenue.
And we brought handouts. I don't know if we want them, if everybody can have in your leisure reading. And good afternoon, council members. Thank you for having us. We're pleased to be back, pleased before City Council to just do a quick update on our institutional master plan. Our current master plan that we've been operating under for the last 10 years was adopted in the summer of 2012. And so we've spent the last maybe 2.5 years, working on the development of our new institutional master plan. We're especially excited about this one for a number of reasons. Obviously, it meets all the zoning code intentions set up in section 905.03, but we do actually touch on, which of course accommodates 10-year development sites or 25-year window. We'll talk about those real quickly in a moment. But one of the things we're also very excited about in this master plan is the amount of, the kind of beyond the scope of what the zoning code calls for that we address in this master plan. Obviously, we look at mobility, but we do it more than just looking at parking. We're talking about how the university is interconnected into the East End network for both vehicles, buses, bikes, as well as pedestrians. We talk a lot about sustainability, about how Carnegie Mellon is a model for green building and green development in the world. and how we want to continue to do that. And we also talk a lot about neighborhood engagement. I'm going to circle back to that one real quick in a few moments. Just as a note, and you could, as I said, look through the packet at your leisure, but I think there's two kind of critical pieces on page 3, which is the schedule, which shows the kind of long-range outreach that we have done. We have been working on this and doing public outreach for about 18 months now, and talking with us. We have talked to literally anybody that would listen to us, including yourselves, and about where we are going with this. And you can see from the colors on the chart on page 3 that we've been doing a lot of outreach. Page 5, the next page over, is actually one that actually shows all that. We have done over 110 meetings over the last 18 months with not just community members, but also campus members as well as city members as well, working with everybody from the Port Authority to DOMI to, of course, our friends at City Planning, and working hard with them, and have continued to do this. We did two sets of open town halls during the pandemic. We did three different sessions twice, once in May of 2021, and then once last fall, August of 2021, where we had 3 different times over 3 days that we had an open call. Anybody could Zoom in and join us for those hearings. So we really have tried to have as much input into this master plan as we could from both our campus and our community constituents. I'm just going to zip to, if I may, to a couple of kind of key pieces of it. The first is the needs for the institution. We know that the university has had a lot of building growth over the last 10 years. You've seen it. It's still going on campus. Part of that has really been driven by the growth of our graduate programs that we've seen on campus. Over the last 20 years, this is on page 8, we've actually doubled the amount of graduate master's students that we have on campus. So now we have actually more graduate and PhD students than we have undergraduates. So that's been a really important, a kind of big move for the university in regards to the kind of spaces we need: labs, research centers, that kind of thing, studios. And so one of the things we're looking at, obviously knowing that we're not going to buy up more land. There's nowhere for us to really go. So really, this master plan talks a lot about density. And if you'll see on the slide on page 11, we talk a lot about kind of 3 main thrusts of this master plan. One is to any new developments that we would do are allowing for greater density on the properties that we own currently. The second is to continue to develop undergraduate on-campus beds. We have started over the last 6 years. We've added about 800 net new beds. By the end of next year, we'll have added 800 net new beds to our 4,000 beds. Our ultimate goal is to add another 600 net beds so that we have over 5,000, about 5,200 beds for our 6,000 undergraduates. The idea is to allow for any undergraduate that wants to live on campus to be able to live on campus for their entirety of their undergraduate experience. I'm going to skip, if I might, just towards the very end. If it can, like I said, we talk a lot about mobility, we talk a lot about sustainability, but I want to talk about our neighborhood engagement and our neighborhood protection goals, because that's been a big, important part of this. There's 2 parts of this. One is the way we're managing impacts on neighbors, how we want to make sure that we're not creating externalities that are always, maybe not always the most positive thing. One of the ways that we want to do that, you can see one of the accompanying bills that's before you today, is also for rezoning of 2 sets of properties for properties that the university owns and operates currently as either student housing or adjunct and staff housing on both Devonshire and at the corner of Neville and 5th. The intent is, we have no development plans for these areas. The intent is to bring these into the EMI zoning so that they're part of the greater master planning district that we're looking at. Otherwise than that, I think that's the main high points, so we appreciate the time, and I want to give a call out to the rest of my team who has done a great job to get us to where we are today, so thank you.
Thank you so much. I know that you could have elaborated completely on all of those different points and more, but really just wanted to restate what I said at the public hearing, which is that you're really the example when it comes to community engagement, engaging with, I think, 5 different communities, and I think that also includes the non-neighborhood organization, but the Parks Conservancy, right, since Shenley Park is abutting the university, I know I can always trust the CMU team to do a full and thorough community engagement, which makes my job a lot easier as well. So with that, I have no questions. I don't know if council members do, but wanted to give that opportunity.
Madam President?
I just want to say thank you all for your work, and we love CMU, but I want to say there's a new member that's going to represent District 5, and she's sitting over there, Barb Warwick. If you'll just make some time between now and next week to talk with her about this, so that I know that she has a level of comfort. Since I'm voting in her place until she gets here, I want to make sure she's comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, Councilwoman Gross?
Thank you all for being here and for your hard work doing lots of outreach. I've been reading through the planning packet. I was able to catch part of our public hearing televised. And so I'm struck that there's public questions and your responses about this kind of like tension between there being too many cars in Oakland, your desire to add more housing on campus, but that resulting in your kind of expanded footprint and encroaching, like, you know, some people's comment on the residential areas. I always ask the large, that aren't as large as yours, but the large nonprofits in my district about the tension. And I'm going to make my question a little more complicated, but I know you're up to the task of answering it, Bob. So the tension between kind of like inducing more cars because more people are coming to your campus, let's say like West Penn Hospital, versus your ability to kind of like get your employees, and so in this case it's not just students but also employees, to campus, like not in cars, and like how your campus expansion here, it's about increasing on-site residency, so that helps with mobility pressures, but the footprint expanding by necessity is a de facto kind of like taking away of other either current housing or possible future density of housing. So we've had this discussion before with other EMI districts. So as they increase in their use, whether it's the hospitals or the universities, right, you are also increasing the amount of employees on site. A lot of those employees do not make a lot of money and put affordable housing pressures on the city or are forced outside of our city in order to work these jobs. So again, I know you're up to the task. So there's this kind of a three-part moving problem.
So thank you. That's a super complex question with lots of interesting pieces. So I'm going to try to attack a little bit of each of them to try to get to it. Let's check on the parking first. One of the things that the university has taken a real priority to is the notion of putting pedestrians at the top of our food chain, if you will. In fact, if you look on, I think it's on one of the pages, maybe page 16 of our document, there's an upside down wedding cake, which really describes the university's position of that, of putting our resources into focusing on making the campus safe for pedestrians, safe for bicyclists, safe for people who use transit. There's also a really big important statement that we are making in this institutional master plan, in which we are committing to no net new parking as we are growing on, or as we're developing our campus. We know that we will build more parking, but that will be replacement for the existing surface parking. The ultimate goal, the day that we bury the last parking under a building or underground, then I'm going to retire, and then we'll be in good shape at that point. But the intention is to hold the line where we are with our net number of parking spaces on campus. And we know that there's, well, 5 years ago, that might have been a harder discussion than it is to have now. Obviously, with the ability for people to work remotely, to Zoom into meetings, we are seeing that there is the ability to be much more flexible and to be able to use our parking resources more efficiently. So the idea being that if a group is coming in where we've seen tandem parking is already becoming a useful thing on campus, where people get a discounted rate to park tandem with somebody else, because that's a little bit more efficient spaces. We're now experimenting with 3-day and 2-day parking passes on campus for people who are coming for only a couple days out of the week, not having their spot lay fallow when they're not on campus. And so we're doing a lot of work to try to manage our resources best so that we can hold to that commitment of no net new parking. The second part about encroachment, this is one that I think that we take very seriously. Obviously, we have very hard edges on most of our frontiers. The entire southern part of campus is up against Shenley Park, which we will never build into. We also know that going to our west, we have the museums and the University of Pittsburgh, which are hard edges as well. we have committed that with the recent work that we've done on Fifth Avenue as part of developing our new residential community along Fifth Avenue across from Central Catholic, that's all that we're doing on Fifth Avenue, and that's really as far as we're going into the Shady Side neighborhood. And you'll see from this master plan, we do not propose any new developments along Fifth Avenue or in Shady Side as part of that. And we have also made a strong commitment that we are not expanding up Beeler or up Forbes Avenue. In fact, we have deliberately turned down offers to buy properties on Beeler and on Devonshire and Devon going across Fifth Avenue and then going up Beeler and up Forbes. We do know that there's the area around Craig Street is still an area that we are looking at, but we are not actively pursuing properties in that area. But we are specifically not growing up into Forbes Avenue, up Beeler, and those areas. So that's why our focus on this master plan, which is the third part to your point, which is this focus on density. And how do we continue to allow for the campus to be able to grow, to allow for the university to create the economic growth that's happening on around the region, is by allowing for greater density. And so the days of us building 3- and 4-story buildings are probably past. We're moving much toward buildings which are much taller. You think of, for us, they're taller at least. We're not going to ever pursue anything like the cathedral, but the idea being that we're pursuing like 6- and 7-story buildings, especially on our remaining parcels. The last part about employment, our employees that work on campus. Yes, we have added employees. Wanting to hold the line in the number of parking spaces we have does put additional work that we're trying to do for our people who take buses to campus or who bike to campus. So part of our mobility plan is this idea of really integrating into that system. We do allow for all full-time faculty and staff have free bus passes, and we've committed to continuing that relationship that we have with PRT. So that if you are a full-time faculty or staff, you can, as students as well, you swipe your card and you get to ride for free, and it's all ticketed back through an arrangement that we have with PRT. So that is actually where we're trying to work for. How do we manage to make sure that we're allowing for people to be able to get to campus when they need to, although we also know that they're not going to be coming back at 100% like they were doing 3 or 4 years ago. Did I get them all?
I think there's
almost
Oh.
the affordable housing pressures in the city,
Yeah, okay.
right? So, we've asked at the table before, kind of like, well, what is the minimum wage of your employees, right? What are your food service and janitorial staff making? And if you're expanding your campus, that expands those kinds of employees in all situations who are, then we're struggling then to find, a way to build affordable housing that is near employment centers. So.
Sure. Well, and I'll say one of the ways that this master plan tries to address that issue is bringing more of our undergraduate students back onto our campus, sort of freeing up rental housing in adjacent communities.
And to that point, one of the other notions, as I said, besides the PRT agreement that we have for our faculty and staff, we also have people that are coming to campus regularly in other means, and so we're trying to make those available. One of the things that we're long-term, we're a little dismayed when the PRT truncated the bus rapid transit at Bellafield, but we continue to have discussions with PRT about the possibility for extending and going, potentially partnering, going after federal funding to extend out, both out of Forbes and on Fifth.
So I'm looking at your map on 17, page 17 of the packet, which will be attached in Legistar because we handed it out at the table. So Madam Clerk, if you can make sure that this packet is also included, if it's not already, it may already be on the legislation, but that there are BRT stations that are like the kind of blue-gray.
The blue boxes, yes.
Yeah, kind of, maybe I'm getting a little colorblind to my glasses. I need new glasses. There's BRT stations at the end of, is that Devon? What is that one that's past Beeler?
Past Beeler, that's Margaret Morrison.
Okay, so is that one actually going to happen, or that's one that's truncated?
No, all of these that are shown currently right now are truncated. Well, they're deferred, I think is the term that the Port Authority or PRT is using, is deferred, but they still are wanting to bring forward at the future. And so there'd be stations on 5th and Forbes, both at Craig Street and at Morewood, and then of course the Forbes and Margaret Morrison. All 5 of those we are meeting regularly with the PRT to try to figure out ways that we can advance those. If not, because the bus rapid transit going through our campus was not to be on dedicated lanes only for buses. So it'd be mixed traffic. So are there ways that we could at least integrate the station design? They had gotten a 90% station design for all 5 of those stations. Are there ways that the university and PRT can frankly work together to try to advance funding for those stations so that they could get incorporated and pick up the benefits of the BRT, at least through campus?
Okay, I see them now. So, again, just to clarify, there's 5. I actually hadn't noticed that. I'd only seen the 3 on Forbes, but there's 5 because you have the 2 on Fifth.
Yes.
All 5 of these are deferred, or
Yes.
just all 5 of them are deferred? That's a bummer, isn't it?
It is a bummer.
Just checking. Yeah.
It is a big time.
We're all-
It's a big time bummer.
We're all
one
bummed
that,
out.
One that we are
about
frankly,
that.
we were, like I said, we are pretty dismayed about.
Yeah.
But we've been having positive
Nicer word.
discussions with PRT and with the folks there, and we hope that we can be able to work together to try to reactivate those and get the, at least the, as I said, the good news is that those were not dedicated lanes, so they did not need major road reconstruction to happen. And if it's an opportunity for us to create the stations that got the off-board payment be able to work on the stations, and that would at least be able to speed up the onboarding and deboarding that would happen at the stations.
Got it. Okay. Well, you've answered my questions, even though as complicated as they were. But these are the dynamics that we're all juggling, right? So how do we build out our city and accommodate, institutions with our EMI zoning while not creating other problems, right? And to minimize those negative impacts as much as possible. I usually, at EMI rezonings, also have to remind and request that the development plans accommodate pedestrian flow throughout the campus. I don't have to in this case. You have excellent pedestrian flow. I love to see that. And it is not a walled-off campus. It is a campus that's inviting to walk, to approach and on foot and to walk through. And so I compliment you there.
In fact, if I may, something that we are very proud of over the last 15 years or 10 to 15 years that we've implemented is really making the campus, for a long time it was a kind of more inward-looking campus. And over the last 10 years, we've really worked hard to make the campus part of the East End network of the city and make it inviting so that people can both walk through it, say they're going from Shadyside to Shenley Park, or just to come onto campus and use the track and those kind of things. And so those are all part of, we think of, the positives of being embedded into the network of the East End.
That's all, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation.
Thank you.
All right, so that'll take us to our next bill, Bill 754.
Bill 754, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code Title 9 Zoning Article 1, Section 902.03 zoning map by changing from RMH multi-unit residential high density and R1DL residential single unit detached residential low density to EMI educational medical institution 7 parcels in the Allegheny County Block and Lot System 7th and 14th wards.
Motion to approve.
Need a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Affirmative recommendation. Bill 895.
Bill 895, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Office of Management and Budget to enter into an agreement or agreements with community-based organizations for community and economic development for planning assistance in various neighborhoods in the city and providing operating support for these groups and provide for the payment at a cost not to exceed $500,000.
Motion to hold 1 week.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill will be held 1 week. Bill 920.
Bill 920, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of City Planning to execute relevant agreements to receive grant funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant for project scoping of Sawmill Run Boulevard in the amount of $300,000 with a local match of $100,000 for a total project cost of $400,000 and authorizing expenditures for this stated purpose.
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That moves us to Urban Recreation Committee, which is chaired by Councilman Burgess. We have one deferred paper, Bill 860.
Bill 860, resolution instructing the Director of Parks and Recreation in the Department of Public Works to amend the rules and regulations for sports field permits to provide priority use to athletic organizations comprised of City of Pittsburgh residents.
Is that? 1 week.
Motion to hold 1 week? Motion to hold 1 week.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill will be held 1 week. That moves us to Innovation Performance Assets Management Committee, chaired by Councilwoman Strasburger. We have one new paper, Bill 919.
Bill 919, resolution amending Resolution 942 of 2021, providing for an agreement or agreements and a lease or leases by and between the City of Pittsburgh and First Vehicle Services, pursuant to which First Vehicle will furnish all work and services needed to manage and maintain the city's vehicle fleet by increasing the 2022 not to exceed amount by $600,000.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. And that takes us to our last committee of the day, Intergovernmental Affairs, chaired by Councilwoman Gross. Our first deferred paper is Bill 641.
Bill 641, resolution of the City of Pittsburgh adopting an amendment to the Still Valley Authority's Articles of Incorporation to decrease the number of members of the Board of Directors of the authority.
Motion to approve with discussion.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. I'd like to bring our city council solicitor to the table to explain the resolution of the clarification of what the situation was with the bylaws here and council's ability to pass this bill. Because it's been hard for me to follow, actually, the legal discussion, so if you don't mind. Mr. Friedson, can you just identify yourself? Thank you.
Daniel Friedson, I'm the solicitor to City Council for the City of Pittsburgh.
Page 12.
Thank you. Could you just bring council up to date on how we were holding this amendment to the Steel Valley Authority's Articles of Incorporation and kind of where your thinking is now?
They have been responsive and listening to us in terms of, I guess, background is initially they'd asked us to put the cart before the horse, if you will, and change the Articles of Incorporation without first having the intergovernmental agreement amended, and that's what the agreement calls for. It says you can't change the Articles of Incorporation without amending this agreement. And so we brought that to their attention. They have since drafted an amendment to the agreement, but to my knowledge, nobody has signed it. And ultimately, I think a meeting of the Steel Valley Authority needs to come together, and the members of the organization need to discuss, is this something they want to do or not? And then if they do, vote on it, sign the amended agreement, and then you can look to amending the Articles of Incorporation. But as it is, it kind of is like, I guess everybody else signed the Articles of Incorporation without having gone through the first process yet, so all of that action is null and void. So it probably wouldn't hurt just to get the group together in a room and ask them to get their house in order if they would like us to do this. And ultimately, for you all, you need to decide if that's something you even want to do or not, and I can't speak to that.
Very good. Thank you. I think you said it more eloquently than I could have, so I appreciate that. And so it's up to the body whether we want to continue to hold or if we just want to table it, and so we can figure out so it doesn't keep coming back up on our agenda. So I'll defer to Madam President because she's been she was the one who figured out that there was a problem and has been pursuing the solution.
I just want to say, since I've been president, I think all I've done is focused on building the strength of council, not ever minimizing our authority anywhere. And so when I get something that says they want to take a council member off of something, then it raises a red flag to me. And so then I started thinking, well, if this is so important to the city, do we want to minimize our voice on there? Because the city of Pittsburgh is a pretty important component of this, and we maybe should have more voices than other smaller municipalities. But then I thought, what is the benefit to the city of Pittsburgh? Why are we a part of it? And if it is such a benefit and it is so important, then why are we willing to give up a seat? And so I just want to have that conversation with members and with them. And I think maybe if we just hold it, 1 more week and then schedule a meeting? You think table it?
I'm going to suggest, if you don't mind, that we just go ahead and table it because we just don't know how long it will take to set up those meetings. It's not killing the bill, and just bring it back up when you
then
know
we can
all the
bring it back
parties
up.
and all of the ducks are in a row.
Okay, we can.
So, motion
like
to
a plan.
table. Do we have enough members in the room?
Yep,
1,
we
2,
do.
3, 4,
Yeah.
5.
You need 6 to bring it back, but
Make the motion?
Motion to table.
Second.
roll call vote.
Reverend Burgess, Mr. Coghill,
Aye.
Ms. Gross,
Aye.
Mr. Kraus, Mrs. Kell Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Strasburger, Mr. Wilson,
Aye.
Mr. Lavelle Chair.
Aye.
Bill is tabled.
Thank you.
And we can work with the solicitor and councilwoman to see if there's a chance to bring it back and work through whatever.
Since Councilwoman Strasburger has returned, I would like to give her the opportunity to vote. We made a motion to
It's the briefing.
table the bill 641.
Okay.
Would you like to cast your vote?
We
Because
voted
I missed
aye.
the actual legal briefing, I will abstain for
Okay.
now. And, yeah, I guess I'll abstain because that's the final vote, I guess, so.
Abstention.
Yeah.
Bill is still tabled. Thank you. That takes us to Bill 886.
Bill 886, resolution authorizing the issuance of a warrant in favor of Kittleson LLC in the amount of $22,360.45 for 2 matters filed in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Our final bill is Bill 911.
Bill 911, resolution authorizing the mayor and the director of the Office of Management and Budget to enter into an agreement or agreements with the URA for administrative services for Commonwealth Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program awards for a sum not to exceed $250,000 over 5 years and for the payment of the costs thereof.
Motion to approve, brief discussion.
Where are these going?
Second.
Discussion?
Great, thank you. I think we actually have Mr. Cornell in the room. Thank you. Would you come to the table? Appreciate it. You can identify yourself for the record when you get settled. And I just wanted to kind of have you explain this to me in email, and I really appreciate that. But I just wanted to let members know kind of what is the change for this, because I actually had misunderstood the previous agreement, so it was really helpful to have your clarification. So go ahead and identify yourself for us.
Thank you. Patrick Cornell, Deputy Director in the Office of Management and Budget. So what we have here is a bill that would authorize several different fee agreements with the URA. The URA is the entity that manages our RCAP program, the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program at the state level. And what that means is everything moves through them. We are awarded and then pass it along to the URA to actually manage the grant and the reimbursement process, things like that. The URA has had a $5,000 per award flat administrative fee for the city of Pittsburgh. Last month, the URA increased that fee to $10,000 for reasons that I would have to find more information about. The city has not paid for the prior awarded projects. So what we are trying to do with this bill is catch ourselves up, make the payments for 10 awarded projects at the previous cost of $5,000. There have since been 2 new RCAP awards since we introduced this. So those would be at the new $10,000 rate. And then this also would allow us to have some flexibility in funding for any future awards over the next few years. This amount is over the councilmanic amount, so anything would need to move through this body. And this will not stop the city from coming back to the table with full award legislation.
So, thank you. I had been under the assumption for a long time that it was state redevelopment law that made us pass our RCAPs through the URA. Do you know if that's true or not?
I do not know the actual mechanisms. I know that there is, part of the description on the RCAP website says it must move through certain types of governments, including a redevelopment authority.
So it's a possible
I would-
possible entity, but we're not sure that it is the exclusive way for RCAPs to move. Because RCAPs have moved to like private developers, but they still have to, and then we've approved those at the table too.
Correct. And my understanding is that things through the city of Pittsburgh in that geographic region move through the URA, but I can confirm and get back to you.
All right. And then I honestly, for all this time, I had thought that it was on a percentage basis per RCAP award, but it's not. It's been a flat $5,000 processing fee, basically,
That is
administrative
correct.
fee. And so this increases each one to 10 million. And so like last year.
Sorry, 10,000.
10,000, excuse me, 10,000. And so last year, the URA passed through how many RCAPs? How many
We have 10
individual
active
awards?
awards right now.
Okay.
I know that the Beachview process is very close to finishing full reimbursement. There are some outstanding components there. It is a long time intensive process from award through grant agreement execution through reimbursement. So a lot of these awards we've had for a few years and are just now, moving on to construction and moving through the process.
Good to know. Good to know. And so I just wanted members to know, because this does increase, not hugely for 2022, but as I've said before, in 2022, there's just been a tenfold or more increase in the amount of money that the city has transferred to the URA. Just a really, just phenomenal, almost $100 million. And the ones that I have in front of me, it actually might be more, but the ones I can recall are the $10 million, of course, Housing Opportunity Fund, which we do every year, the $2 million home funds, which are federal CDBG funds, but restricted use, $75 million of our $335 million ARPA funds, and then most recently the $6.5 million additional of CDBG funds, totaling up to $93.5 million in 2022. And so this is just an increase in the amount that the URA wants to administrate each of the RCAPs. So that previously they were getting $5,000 per award, and this would give them $10,000 per award for their administrative costs. I said that right? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Okay. So I just wanted everyone to realize what that was, because again, when I first saw it, I was actually confused, and I appreciate, Mr. Cornell, you helping me through it. Mr. Chair, that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That does exhaust our agenda. We do have a number of meeting announcements. Whoops. This afternoon at 1:30 p.m., council will hold the 2023 budget overview and policy discussion. Tomorrow, Wednesday, November 16th at 10 a.m., council's budget hearings will begin with the Department of Human Services and the Department of Innovation and Performance, chaired by Councilwoman Strasburger, and the Departments of Permit Licensing and Inspection, chaired by Councilman Wilson. At 1:30 p.m., council's budget hearings will continue with the Office of Management and Budget, chaired by myself. Budget meetings will continue Thursday, November 17th at 10 a.m. with the URA, chaired by Councilwoman Gross, and City Planning, chaired by Councilman Wilson. Also Thursday at 1:30 p.m., council will hold a cablecast public hearing on Bill 0795 as relates to a liquor license transfer to the Village Social Club. Speaker registration will close at 12 noon on Thursday afternoon. Also, next week, due to the Thanksgiving holiday, council will hold our regular and standing committee meetings on Monday, November 21st at 10 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. respectively. Speaker registration will close at 9 a.m. for the regular meeting and 12:30 p.m. for the standing committees meeting. To register to speak at these meetings, please fill out the sign-up form on the council meeting webpage by the deadline. You may also call the clerk's office at 412-255-2138. Is there anything from members? If not, need a motion to approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
Bye.